there we go. So plan for today's chest pump, today's chest workout is going to be a little different. I'm going to change it up just a touch from how I normally go about it because, well, normally I end up doing mainly some kind of heavy press first, be it be it an inclined Smith, be it an inclined barbell, be it whatever. It's usually a heavy press followed by like some kind of squeezing movement afterward. But with this one, I think I want to change it up, do my same regular like tricep, shoulder, every other part of the warm-up. But then when it comes to the first working set, I'm going to start with those sort of incline bench cable press setup, where you get a cable, or you get two individual cable arms, and you do a cable press where the cables kind of pull, or you have to pull the cables inward together. So I'm really just kind of following suit with how I've been doing a lot of triceps and quads, where instead of jumping straight to the first movement as the heavy loading movement, I'll start off with something a bit more squeezing focused first, and it'll still be heavy. Like, I'm not doing zero weight, but I am, doing a light enough weight where I can really focus on the squeezing portion and kind of jump start the pumpedness, as it were. Because when it comes to like a heavy press, very tension focused, unless it's like unless it's some kind of converging chest press, or like a hammer strength kind of thing, or like an arsenal thing where the handles come together. Or, dumbbell bench is pretty good about the squeeze too. But with like barbell and Smith machine, there's a reason why you rest with the bar at the top and then you go down for another rep. It's just because that's the easy part, You lose a lot of tension on your chest because now you're supporting the weight purely with your bones, right? With your whole skeletal support system. Whereas with something like a cable press, like the one I'm going to start with today, there's no break. If anything, the break is kind of down here in the stretch position because it gets harder the harder you squeeze at the top. So that's my way to change it up today. Plus, I've only had, I think, 60 grams of carbs so far. Probably should have had a few more, but I wasn't really in the mood for oatmeal again. So, I'll probably just stop somewhere and maybe get some extra. Well, I don't really know. Carb-wise, I've been eating pretty plainly. I'm talking oats, I'm talking rice. Maybe I'll do some potatoes when I get home. That'd be nice. I'll do a half pound of a top round steak and some potatoes as a post-workout meal. Yeah, that'll be perfect. But since I'm not totally full of carbs and crazy strong, and when you're bulking up and eating a lot of food too, you are a bit more resilient physically to like any tweaks or anything. So I'm really just asking for trouble trying to start off with anything too heavy off the rip. So I think that'll be a good way to ease into it. And then after 2 sets of those chest press, or maybe 3, depending on how good it feels. I can tell I'm getting a little more tired in general, not having so much food in my system. Right, the dieting lethargy may be hitting me, but so even after a couple hard sets of that converging chest press, I could move on to Smith and still have a good heavy set. It'll just be might just be a little bit lighter than the most weight I could possibly do, but that's not the point. The numbers don't really you're not gonna look at somebody's chest pump and think, wow, that guy's got the chest pump of somebody who benched 365 for 8 and did this. It's whatever. That's more of a the actual weight numbers. I think that's more so in our heads than it really is in our fucking muscles. Right? Now, of course, it does feel cool to bench a lot, but I'm trying to get a bit more concerned with just the overall workout's quality in general, rather than just hitting arbitrary fucking numbers, which that might just be the nature of gym equipment itself. If the stack is within reason and you can kind of force it, there is kind of a little bit of a human nature to try to completely max it out. So That's why I like the idea of having weight stacks that are too heavy for anybody to use, because then it cuts the ego out of the equation, because nobody can even do the whole stack. So then you're forced to actually pick weights that are, gonna make sense for you at that time. But just something I think about. A lot more, would take a lot more steel though. I mean, weight is fucking expensive. But no more talking about friggin' the back ends and the ins and outs of these equipments. Let's start with some squeezing chest press on the cables and then go from there. This will be a good start. Lightish. Actually, no, not lightish. Hefty. But heavy enough where I feel it. Not too heavy I start using front delts, because I do want this to be all chest. It's kind of the whole point of the setup, instead of like a Smith machine or whatever else. But this will be good. Shoulder blades tucked and everything. Oh my god. Oh. A few more.
Dre is disgusting. Right? So you got to 17, bro. You're not even blood, bro. No, like straight up air. Like nothing's coming out. One dude looks like this. I've had that before. I've been guys. More what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But like they're like it's like a
Oh yeah. Let's make it a drop set.
I'm gonna take advantage of that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Let's go do Smith bench, I believe. Let's get rear with 3 plates here. Not super slow, but normal tempo. Oh yeah. Ooh. Okay. Let's make this next one a drop set. That was really good though. Yeah. Holy crap. Oh. Let's go do something cable related. That was good. Ooh. So that was 2 incline kind of movements in a row. Let's switch it up. And this will be a slow one. Like those incline Smith, those reps are getting a little quick, a little pumpish. This is going to be very methodical. So kind of a top to bottom fly. And I wouldn't necessarily call this straight decline work, because when I get to the top of the stretch and squeeze, I still do feel my whole chest, but it is a little more declined than like those incline presses and that incline Smith. So perfect way to bounce around. Same thing with back. You wouldn't do all lats. You do some lats, do some traps, do some stuff in the middle. So this is the decline portion. But let's just get this set done and see where to go next. No. Okay. One more. Same thing, but I'm gonna add a drop set, but without changing the weight. So sitting right here, same thing with the flies. And all I have to do to make it easier on myself is now just bend over a bit and do more of a decline press. Because now instead of having to pull the weight this far from my shoulder, if I'm doing a press, it's only this far, right? So I get more mechanical advantage. But let's get amped up and we're getting close to the end. This might even be it, but I think probably one more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll finish with a superset. The finisher will be his. This just regular chest press. But I got to burn out with some dumbbell, like squeezing drag flies first. I don't know if I'd recommend the movement. Like it's cool, but it's kind of tricky. It's really just a good little pre-exhauster. Because there's no stretch. It's just holding 2 dumbbells here and squeezing the fuck out of each one, alternating. So I would not call it a complete movement, but coupling it as a pre-exhaust with something like this, perfect. Let's go. Okay. Oh. Let's go find some lighting. Chest complete. There we go. All right. I didn't even mess up the manual focus this time. Good for me. But chest complete. Let's just see how they're looking. So I feel, for the fact that I only had 60 grams of carbs today, I feel crazy fucking pumped. I'm talking, subjectively, as pumped as I would feel when I'm all carved up from like being bulked. So let's not just pose down in the middle of the gym for too long, but let's run through a few here. Oh my goodness. So, all done there. But, the leaner I get, I almost feel like I'm getting bigger. Even though, I'm literally shrinking. Right? I'm getting lighter. But the leanness effect of the ratio of my shoulders to my waist, because my waist is now getting thinner, because this layer of fat on the outside is kind of starting to shrink down. It's just adding to the illusion. So that is what I'm freaking here for over these next couple months. But let's get in the car and get out of here. That was a quick one. That one did not take that long, which not really surprising. It's just one muscle group, right? Just pure freaking chest obliteration. Or I guess the better term might be chest stimulation. That wasn't like I don't think there wasn't any physical damage, but no, that was good. That was a pretty good one. But when it comes to a single body part workout like that, or I think it's might be easier to call it a single muscle group workout. It just doesn't shouldn't take you that long, And I preface that with the fact that as long as the sets that you end up doing, are like reasonably intense, then I don't see too much reason why you should have like a 15 set chest day, or like a 30 set bicep day, or any kind of, really anything even above probably 12 might get my lifter sense going to be a little bit suspicious and say, huh, you've been doing a 15 set chest day? How's that been working out for you? That would just make me a little curious. Now, of course, that would not negate any progress that you'd be making if that was the routine that you were doing, because obviously it's working for you. Keep doing what works, right? But I think for the most part, a lot of sets that end up being done on the regular are maybe just a touch lackluster in terms of the intensity department, And it's not like that totally kills your whole workout. You can swing, you can cut down a tree with 100 swings of an axe, just like you could with 15 crazy hard powerful ones. But which guy's going to be done first? And that's not really an awesome analogy because it's not the same goal, but you get what I'm saying. So that's something where I definitely like looking at each set and thinking, okay, was that hard? Like, did I really try to kill it on that one? And if the answer is no, clearly I have some changes to do, right? Clearly I've got some adjustments to make and say, okay, I better step it up for this next one. Now, usually that doesn't happen. Honestly, I feel like I can go pretty hard for the most part. So I don't usually have to like readjust my intensity during these workouts, but sometimes I do, especially with hamstrings. Not as much. When everything's in order, if I've gotten a good amount of rest, I'm well hydrated, I'm excited, pre-workout and everything else, which even like driving to the gym, getting hyped up, you can almost counteract being a little underslept, a little underfed. But ideally, of course, all of that's going to be in place. But what I'm trying to say was I've had a lot of lifts before, and it ends up being mainly hamstrings. Maybe just because leg days are so daunting, and hamstrings is what I do first on legs. But where I'll do one set of hamstrings or sometimes one set of leg extensions, and that's the first set of the workout. That's the opener. I'm trying to set the bar, and I basically just wuss out. Like, I don't really push it, like I did an okay set, like it was fine, but I totally called it early, and I just racked it when I probably could have gone way harder. And not even like racking it early, but when you're fresh, the first couple reps of any set that you do, you should really try to push it. Like squeeze, the actual moving of the weight itself. Like when I was doing those sets of the incline cable press and those decline cable flies, when I got to that squeeze position, I was really trying to push it as hard as I could. Even though I'm not moving the weight, I'm still just exerting more force at the top. And I notice if I ever don't do that, then that's a little cue. It sends this trigger system in my mind, like if you've got one of those beepers in your basement when it starts to flood, right, and it starts like just ringing like crazy. And I kind of think to myself, like, okay, that didn't even count. Like I've had a lot of leg days where the first, and by a lot I mean like, I don't know, maybe 20 over the last couple of years, which is a lot. It feels like a lot for me at least. Where after the first set, where I kind of like, the intensity was a little, like it was still in, enough that I was doing a working set, but it wasn't as much as I know I could bring to the table. So I almost have to say, okay, that set didn't even fucking count. I'm just going to add that to the warm-ups, and now I really got to push it here. Right, so let's do a real set now. And then, if you've got a little bit of maybe backbone, backbone is not the right word, but I mean, you should have a little bit of like an enforcer type mentality about your own intensity. Because if I did a scrappy set like that kind of scenario I'm talking about, the first one was like, like it gets me kind of riled up. At least as long as I've got as I'm in like a good mindset, I'm like, what the fuck was that? Why did I do that? Why would I think that enough intensity or that level of intensity was enough? And then I come back and the next set is always good. The next set is always freaking sweet. Because by then I'm really into it. I'm really getting, excited. And it ends up being a good one, So try to hold your sets to a certain degree of intensity. And it doesn't have to be, some level that's been set by anybody else. Because if you're going hard or not. And unfortunately, I think a lot of guys are kind of in a state of delusion, and they sort of lie to themselves about, okay, I mean, that set was kind of burning, it felt pretty hard, I'll rack it. Whereas, like, if the guy was really fucking trying to kill it, he can maybe get another 10 reps. I've heard a couple dudes where they're telling me that they were spotting one of their friends on like pendulum squats. The guy wanted to rack it. They forced him to unrack it and keep going. Like they tried to rile him up, and the guy got 10 more. So that's another piece of the puzzle, which gets me a little less than excited about anybody where they try to dictate their training intensity with like reps in reserve, because it's so subjective, right? And unless you make your intensity like a non-negotiable with yourself, then your brain is always going to try to take the easy way out, at least for the most part. If there was some way where instead of doing really hard, crazy leg days, all I had to do was like, do a specific lacrosse ball massage, my legs would suddenly blow up. Yeah, I think I'd probably just do that instead, So if you let yourself, if you let the little voice in your head creep into your thoughts where you're like, oh, well, I'm kind of busy with all my other stuff today, and you can start coming up with a million fucking excuses. Well, I'm not really that well fed today, and I'm not really I didn't get a lot of good sleep last night. I was kind of rolling around. You can make up a million fucking excuses to back off on your lift intensity. But excuses to yourself, ugh, come on, man. And I'm not saying that like I never do that to myself either. But I do want to, try to become the guy who doesn't do that. So with the intensity, I think as long as you get a crazy song plan, you're in the gym, you're excited about the space, during the drive to the gym, you're maybe thinking about your workout, you're in a good sort of mental, I guess, mental headspace about it, just try to go nuts. And frankly, I think the more nuts you can go on a set-by-set basis is a pretty strong correlating variable to just how your gains are going to be in general. Because the guy, I've said this a couple times, the guy who wants to kill it in the gym on the regular is basically going to bleed that effort into the rest of his routine, because everything outside of the gym plays into that intensity in the gym, right? So if I want to come to the gym, feel fresh, feel strong, do a really hard workout, then anything that would get in the way of that, I want to back off on it, right? I want to make it such that it's all kind of piling together as a support system for these workouts. So am I going to have an awesome chest day if I slept, 4 hours? Probably not. Am I going to have an awesome pump if I only drank, a liter or less of water today? Which, I mean, you think a liter is kind of a lot, but especially when you get a little bigger, that ends up being just like, sitting. Like I had a liter of water with just the pre-workout right before I went to the gym today. Like your fluids are going to have a pretty strong factor too. Am I going to have an awesome lift if I'm not eating my meals, right? Or if I'm not getting myself in a headspace to really get excited? No. So that's where, if you're crazy enough about it and you like trying to redline it with your intensity during all your workouts, and I really do think it'll get you going. Frankly, that just kind of, that sort of physical exertion, very, not to copy the Liver King, but I do think there is something primal about it. But if you're really into that, then the rest of your routine will start to reflect it, and then you're going to get better gains because now you have a better routine, and it's just going to be like an upward fucking spiral, So then it's just up to you to try to, not kill your momentum. So, and that's my little shtick there, right? The guys who have the best lifts usually have the best sleep, the best hydration. They're tracking their calories, their macros, and everything. And I know I've said that a million times. Probably going to say it 2 million more. So don't get used to it. But chest complete. That puts me at day 32. So about 4.5 weeks into this dieting phase. And I am on track to some freakiness again. I think the last time I remember being extra lean was one of my cousin's wedding. Like maybe almost 8 or 9 months ago or something. Yeah. I'm even starting to notice too, just in my regular kind of walking around, when I was warming up and doing like some dumbbell front raises to get my shoulders moving and my rotator cuffs and everything, I could tell even without a pump, I was starting to see some more forearm veins creeping around. So just another motivating factor to make me say, okay, as much as I would probably not mind doing a 2-stop trip before I go home, one at Crumble, one at Cane's, is that exactly in line with the fact that I want to have like freaky ass forearm veins and everything else? No, I'll save it for later. I can save it for later. Right, so that's my thought process with the cheat meals. And like I'll have some treats every so often, but it's gonna be a while before those floodgates get opened again. So until then, there's not gonna be a Sam bulking mukbang. Actually, there's not gonna be any bulking related anything until next year. So if you're really just here to check out some bulked up lifts or some bulking diets, you got a little bit of waiting to do. But now I'm just fucking rambling. So I will see you tomorrow for a wide barn door back day.